you glance around at the heavy metal scene right now, you might think heavy metal is dying. There are very serious reasons to think that it is. And if you think back to what was the last big, huge metal band, well, the only answer you're probably going to have is Metallica. And that seems like it was quite a while ago, 80s, when Metallica first came on the scene. And there have definitely been bands other than Metallica, but they're the last really big heavy metal band. So the question naturally arises, if they were the last big heavy metal band, did they destroy heavy metal? So when Metallica came out in the 1980s, they didn't just start heavy metal, they detonated a new form of metal altogether. So arguably you could say that they destroyed heavy metal from the minute that they arrived, because thrash metal wasn't a refinement of existing metal music, it was a complete break with it, a complete new genre. Speed, aggression, precision went way past anything that was done in earlier heavy metal style, and Metallica didn't just succeed in terms of climbing onto existing metal audiences, they created a ton of new fans. And along with doing that, they inspired an explosion of thrash bands like Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, Exodus, Testament, hundreds more. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Most of those bands are now footnotes. Nobody remembers who they were, and everybody remembers who Metallica was. So Metallica in some ways paved a road for all these bands, but none of them were able to stay on that road. In the 1990s, Metallica became a more commercial band with simplified song structures, and they started adding more rhythmic grooves, more production, and more arena scale-like hooks to their music. What they were doing when they did this was not really abandoning metal, like some fans have said, but what was happening was they were standardizing it. They were making a brand out of heavy metal. And in doing so, Metallica became the default definition of what heavy metal is. Even more evidence or more indication that they may have in fact been the death of the genre. There was no other band that rose up to challenge or even equal Metallica since they have taken over in the 90s. Not Pantera, not Tool, not Slipknot. Those are all really good bands, but they did not attain what Metallica attained in terms of impact, in terms of musical newness, and in terms of fan loyalty. So the question is, metal is dead, or is it? And if it is dead, did Metallica have something to do with its demise? And I have a really simple answer to this question, which is no, Metallica had nothing to do with the decline or apparent demise of metal, because metal was always a niche genre. So Sabbath started off as a cult band that no one knew except for hardcore listeners. Priest was the same way. Every metal identified band that you can think of started off being underground. Iron Maiden, and there is a cycle for any heavy metal band that wants to go as far as the cycle allows, which is this. You start off as an underground band, you break through, you go commercial, backlash, and then you reinvent yourself. The difference is Metallica extended that mainstream part of that process longer than any other metal band ever had. This means that in terms of comparing Metallica to Sabbath or Priest, you have to look at what they did. So Sabbath created the basis of heavy metal, and they left an open playing field for other bands. Judas Priest codified the style and the look, and they themselves showed what was possible with a speed-based twin guitar attack. Metallica came along and professionalized all of this. They turned it into branding, into stadium-level rock, with consistent quality control, with demographic research, and they looked for longevity over individual masterpiece albums. That kind of makes it look like they're frozen, but it definitely does not signal that they're destroying the genre. So the part that people don't really seem to understand when it comes to this is that Metallica were absorbing all of the commercial oxygen that the other bands created. So Priest and Maiden and bands like this kind of knocked on the commercial door in the 80s. Metallica came in and sucked up all of that energy for themselves. But here's something to think about. The oxygen, popularity, would have dwindled anyway, because cultural attention always moves on. Genres don't actually die, they just go through cycles and they become appealing to different groups of people. So today, heavy metal is fragmented, global, and niche, just like it was in the days before it became a commercial entity. Just exactly what it was before Metallica got it. Now, there's another irony here, which is if you're a 15-year-old today and you discover heavy metal, there's a good chance that Metallica is one of the gateways. Master of Puppets is still huge in popular culture. Hetfield's riffs are still studied, and the songs are still covered by other bands. And that means that they didn't destroy the genre, they're actually keeping the genre alive. They've actually carried the flag of heavy metal longer and louder and farther into the mainstream than any other band. And when the spotlight finally moves on from Metallica, to eventually will, heavy metal will be very much in the same state that it was before they came, with a hardcore base audience and the potential for periodic commercial breakouts. This is the way I see it. But what really matters is what you think. So let me know how you view Metallica. Do you see them as the proud flag flyers of heavy metal? Or do you see them as the ultimate destruction of what was otherwise a thriving genre? Let me know in the comments below.
MusicGuru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.